In today's video, I'm going to be talking about losing your virginity. Although I really don't like the way we refer to this phenomena as losing our virginity, as if we're losing something, because I actually find that we're gaining something. We're gaining a new experience. It's the start of our sexual life, and it should be seen as kind of an initiation and a beautiful opening into a new world rather than a losing of something. I think this is a topic that most of us, when that time is approaching, we have a lot of questions and we can have a lot of excitement and anticipation, but there can also be a little bit of anxiety or even fear. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some tips and some advice to make that experience as beautiful and connected as possible. So first things first, if you're watching this video, probably you've already put some thought into the fact that you are ready to lose your virginity, but it's very important that you're clear within yourself that you feel ready for this experience and that this is 100% your choice. It's really common, especially around high school times, that we start to get pressured by our friends or by our boyfriends into having sex before we're ready. So make sure that you're not wanting to have sex for the first time simply because everyone else is doing it or because you feel pressure to, but only when you feel 100% ready. And a good question to kind of contemplate if you're not really sure is, why do you want to have sex? And if your answer is just to get it over with or because everyone else is doing it, then maybe you might want to wait a little bit more until the answer is a little bit more empowered. So let's say that your answer is because I really want to have sex, because I really want to experience this, because I really love my boyfriend and I want to connect with him in a more intimate way. So just contemplating why you want to have sex is a beautiful measure to kind of see if you're ready or if maybe you should wait a little bit. And with that, there's absolutely no right or wrong time to lose your virginity. People are ready to have sex at different ages, so it's really fully up to how you feel in this moment. Now, something I would really recommend is if you decide to lose your virginity, and let's say you decided that you will lose your virginity with your current boyfriend, I really recommend that you have a conversation about it before it happens. And just having a moment to check in with each other if you're both ready, if you're both on the same page. You can also share about some of the fears you may have, trying to think about how you would like it to happen. So where would you like to lose your virginity? Is there a specific place? Can you plan ahead of time? Some people like to keep it spontaneous, so even though you talked about it, you just decide to leave it more spontaneous and in the flow of the moment. Other people decide to set a specific date and kind of prepare for it. So either way is fine, but just to talk about that. And then also to make sure to talk about protection. Who's going to get the condom? Who's going to get lube? Lube is going to be your best friend the first time you have sex. And just making sure that when that moment comes, you have everything you need. You have a place where you feel private, where you're not worried someone is going to walk in on you. You have a condom, you have lube, and you have everything you need to make that experience as beautiful as possible. Now, another important element, which doesn't just relate to your first time having sex, but having sex in general, is the concept of consent. So consent basically means that you are enthusiastically and willingly agreeing to a certain experience. And this is something which is really good to talk about before you have sex, because specifically when it comes to losing your virginity, what tends to happen is that you might feel completely ready as you're having the talk and you have the intention to go for it 100%, and then that day comes and you start to kiss and maybe you start to have some foreplay, and all of a sudden you tense up and you realize that actually you're not ready or that you don't really want it right now. It's good for you to know that at any point in the interaction you can change your mind and say no. And even if before you both talked and said that yes, you want to have sex with each other, if while things are heating up you don't want to have sex anymore, you can say no. And it's really great to talk about that before, because sometimes if we didn't talk about it and it happens during the interaction, our partners can feel rejected. So if you talked about it before, it just helps our partner to support us through that and not to feel like we're rejecting them. Now, some common worries that men or boys will have is one, that they might not have an erection. And that's good for both women and men to know as they go into not just their first interaction, all sexual interactions in general, but in particular the first time having sex, it's more likely that due to all of the pressure of having to perform and having to do things right and wanting to please her, that somehow all of that stress and performance anxiety will make you not be able to get hard. Now, if that happens, what most men tend to do is they try harder. So they get stressed about it and they try more and more and more. But the interesting thing is that the more you try, the less likely it is to happen. Because in order for an erection to happen, you need to be in a relaxed state. So the best thing you can do if you don't manage to get an erection, or if you lose your erection halfway through, is simply to slow down, stop, take a few breaths, and slowly try to build up arousal again. Now, the second thing that you may be worried about if you're a boy or a man watching this is that you won't last very long. And I just want to let you know that this is completely normal and not to stress out about that too much. Most men will tell you that when they lost their virginity, they didn't last very long, simply because it can be a bit overwhelming. There's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of sensations, and it can be hard to control all of that energy. Now, a good thing to do is to go as slow as possible. So not to rush for the finish line, but really to savor every moment, the kissing, the foreplay, and that will really help you also last longer. Now, for women and girls, the most common fear is definitely that losing your virginity is going to be painful. I want to break that myth, because losing your virginity does not have to be painful. It might be slightly uncomfortable, but it definitely shouldn't be painful. The reason that for some girls losing their virginity is painful is because they're so afraid of what's to come, or they're so nervous that it's going to be painful, that their whole body kind of contracts and the muscles in the vagina also contract, and this is exactly what can make penetration painful. So the best thing to remember is that as long as you relax and breathe deeply, it shouldn't be painful, maybe slightly uncomfortable. Another good thing to keep in mind is that men are more like fire, so they tend to light up very quickly and be ready to go very quickly, whereas women are more like boiling water. It can take a little bit more time to get to a boil. So make sure to communicate with each other that you will spend enough time in foreplay, because what's most likely to happen is that he will be ready very soon and she might not be ready as fast as he is. So just spending more time with foreplay will help you as a woman to get ready and fully lubricated before going for penetration, and that's also going to make it much more pleasurable. So a good thing to wait for is until you really feel like you really want it, you really want him to enter you. That's the moment you want to wait for. And if you're really aroused and everything is a little bit more engorged and puffy down there, it's gonna feel a lot better. Now with that, you may or may not bleed a little bit the first time you have sex. That's because your hymen may or may not tear a little bit. So actually, some women are born without a hymen, and a lot of women already tore their hymen during sports when they were younger. And for some women, the hymen doesn't even tear the first time because it simply stretches. But sometimes with the tearing of the hymen, there can be a little bit of blood. Now, don't get freaked out. This is not going to be like gushing blood. It might just be a few drops, and it's not going to be anything dramatic. But just to be prepared, it's good to have some towels under you, ideally maybe a red color or a darker color. So if and when that does happen, you're prepared. And another thing which girls sometimes worry about when losing their virginity is it gonna be enjoyable at all? It might be, and it might be a little bit dull. It really depends. Sometimes losing your virginity can be mind-blowing and everything you imagine, and you might even have an orgasm and feel a lot of pleasure. And other times, for example, my first time was just kind of like, okay, so that was okay. Like, it wasn't super painful or anything, but I didn't have fireworks. There wasn't any big explosions. But what's good to remember, either way, even if it's amazing or if it's just okay, but you didn't feel so much pleasure, is that sex keeps on getting better and better. And that's both for men and for women. So the more you have sex, the better it will get. So just know that no matter how your first time was, there's only kind of an upwards journey from that point on. Now, if you want to make it more pleasurable when you're losing your virginity, it can be helpful just to touch your clitoris a little bit. So if this is your clitoris, just with your forefingers while he is inside of you in missionary position, because it will help you get more aroused. And missionary position is the position I recommend for losing your virginity, because for you as a man, it will help you to be in control. So it will help you with your erection and with delaying your ejaculation, because you're in control of how much friction and arousal there is. And for you as a woman, when you're laying down on your back, you can really relax and breathe deeply, and you don't need to focus on moving in any way, and you can fully just focus on relaxing. It's very common that right when penetration is going to happen that you kind of hold your breath and tense up. Don't do that. You actually want to breathe very deeply right as that moment comes, because that will help all of the muscles of your vaginas relax. And if it feels a little bit tight, or you feel like it can't go inside, a good trick to do is that as you inhale and fill your belly, kind of pretend that you're forcefully trying to pee. So kind of push out as if you're trying to pee, and then slowly have him enter you, and then exhale, pause, and then inhale, belly expand, and kind of push out like you're trying to pee, which will open your vagina. He can come in a little bit more, and then exhale, pause. So that can really, really help you if you feel a bit stuck, or you feel like there's not enough room down there. Just using your breath to relax the muscles will definitely help make it more smooth and pain-free. And the last point I would like to make, which is so important, is that you both keep a sense of honor for what you shared and a sense of respect for each other. And that means to keep a sense of privacy for what was shared, and not to go and tell everyone about the ins and outs of what happened and how the other person was in that interaction. So not telling all of your friends, if you're a man, about how much she was bleeding or that she did an orgasm, or if you're a girl, not telling all your friends that he couldn't get an erection or that he ejaculated very, very quickly. All of those things are a big no-no. You're sharing a very beautiful and intimate experience with each other, and it's something which is just between the two of you, and it's not something that needs to become public knowledge. With that, of course, you can feel free to share to your closest friend how you felt and what your experience was like, but just make sure not to go into gossiping, because sometimes we can go into a beautiful experience and then after things go sour and we start to gossip about it, and it can kind of taint what we shared. So just make sure to honor that and to respect that, and it will make both of you feel a lot safer to open and to explore more together.